Okay, guys, we're back again, and I noticed we had a lot of people join us since we started that I hadn't realized. And if one or two of you would type into the message box that you can see my screen and that you can hear my voice, I'd appreciate it. Okay, great. Thank you very much. All right, a lot of you guys joined me a little later than the beginning of the session. Hopefully, anything that you've missed, you'll be able to catch up on. I will be posting the video from the start on YouTube, except for maybe about 5 or 10 minutes where we just kind of like chatting here for a bit. So even if you tuned in a little late or if you missed the session entirely, you could time shift it. You could watch it anytime you want. So that this really is kind of an interesting way to take this course because you got a lot of flexibility. You could come here, you could come here and watch it again later on. Have go through the material again later on. You can stay home and just watch it live and have kind of the same similar experience to what you're having here, or you could just take it as if it's a regular online course where you don't actually have interaction with the instructor and you just play the videos anytime you want. Play those videos and do the exercises on your own. Okay, so in addition to doing this in this setting and also posting material in the form of videos or exercises as well on Blackboard. In addition to that, on occasion, if I notice that we're starting to get into an area where people are having some issues, I'll have like just a helper review session on a specific issue or specific problem. So, like if it were on a Thursday night or something like that, I post on Blackboard. I'm going to have it at this particular time. If you have questions, email them to me or put them into the discussions forum, and then I will cover those. And we can interact with the chat or something like that for that help and review session. But it'll be directed. So even if you're doing it time shifted and you don't see me live at all, you can ask me questions that I can answer during those sessions. And again, those will be recorded and posted on Blackboard as well. Okay, let me move this out of the way. Okay, good. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to move on to the next exercise that we have here, which was number, let me see if I can find it again. That was number, let's see, we had number 6. Okay. I'm going to open number 7. Okay, let's see what number 7 is. Okay, it's an Excel file for starters. Okay, it's the one we just discussed before. Okay, so now I have, I see that I have data in Excel. I have blood pressure. I have 10 numbers after that. Each of these 10 numbers represents a patient, a subject in an experiment, for instance. I have a single variable. My variable name is BP, BP standing for blood pressure. My variable type is numerical. It's a numerical variable. Okay, so I'm going to add another variable here, and I'm going to call that variable gender or sex. Okay, and I'm going to identify each subject by their gender, and I'm going to call the males 1 and the females 0, 1 and 0. So 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, and 0, 0. It just happens to be organized that way. So 1 represents males, 0 represents females. Now the difference here is that this blood pressure is a numerical variable, and sex or gender is a nominal variable, male or female. I've represented it by 1 or a 2, a 1 or a 0, but it's really just a nominal variable. It really represents a name, male or female. Okay, reason why we do this a lot of the time is because if we have researchers that are typing information into a computer, right? Well, maybe they'll every once in a while make a little mistake there, like a typo. Computer won't recognize that as the same thing as MALE, right? Or maybe it won't recognize this as the same thing as this. Or maybe sometimes somebody will just write that or female or maybe just some other kind of typo or something like that. There are issues with that. And a lot of that you can avoid by just representing the value with a simple number, simple digit. Like for instance, left-handed or right-handed, you might use L and R to represent left and right, or you might use 1 and 2 to represent left and right. So that way you avoid all these issues of case and typing and format and so on and so forth. So that's what we've done here. So I'm going to save this file. I'm going to say save as. I'm going to drop it on my desktop as, let me go to desktop. I'm going to drop it on my desktop as, I'll give it a name like import. Import to SPSS. Give you a hint of what I'm about to do. It's an Excel file. Now, once I've saved that to my desktop, I'm going to close this file. You need to close the file because SPSS will not allow you to import a file that's open in another program. It can't handle changes in the file that might be done by another program. So now there's a couple of ways for me to open this up. One is to right click on that file and tell it to open it with SPSS or something like that. The other way is to start with SPSS. And I've already opened SPSS. Actually, let me quit this. I'm going to open it from scratch so you see what it looks like when it opens. Now, I presume that some of you haven't downloaded SPSS installed on your computer yet. It's on all the computers here in our lab. You can work with it if you want, the same file if you want. So I'm going to click on SPSS to start it up. Okay, if you have Windows, you would go to the Start button, of course, or those funny little squares that they have in Windows 10 now. And start it up. You get the opening blurb window. And then you get a template window where you can open up a new data set. You can it'll list the recently used files for you. It's not listing many for me for some reason. Okay, you can make this if you click this. It will not show you this opening menu again. You can just use it without it. Just like you can tell Word not to show you that template menu every time you open up a new when you start the program. So I'm just going to close this, make it go away. Okay, there's a warning for me to renew my license. Okay, and here is your real opening window in SPSS. Occasionally, you might get a warning about different file storage formats in SPSS. They changed the way they save files, the way they encode files in SPSS a few years ago, and you may get a warning about a file that you open up that's encoded the old way or encoded the new way and not the old way. But whatever it comes up, don't worry about it. It'll handle it itself. Just say okay and make that window go away if it does come up for you. Okay, so this is a brand new worksheet that I have for SPSS. You'll notice that it looks very similar to Excel. It's nothing like Excel. All this does is give you a mechanism for storing this information. Okay, you can't type in a formula here, right? That value is equal. That's what the value is now, right? So you can't really do that. I'm going to reopen this now. I'll open a new window. So I kind of messed that up. It doesn't matter. I'm going to be doing something else anyway. So we have a window, and this is where we can display our information. In the columns, we display our variables. Like, for instance, we're going to see blood pressure and gender here in the columns when we import a new file. The rows represent our subjects. So we're going to be using 2 columns, just like in Excel, and we're going to be using 10 rows, just like in Excel, except in our case, they're just storage areas. There's not places in this spreadsheet on this page that we can use to actually do any calculations. We do that differently with SPSS. So the way I import an Excel file, I don't even really have to. I could, if I want, type in all these values, 80, 85, so on and so forth, and for male and female, 1, and so on and so forth. I could type those in if I wanted to. However, that's kind of tedious if I already have it in the database or another program. It's valuable for me able to import that data without having to recreate it, not only for convenience, but also to avoid transcription errors. So I'm going to go here to File, Open. We're going to open a data file. Okay, and I'm going to navigate to my desktop, and I'm going to look for that Excel file down here, but I don't see it. Well, you see anything here that would impact whether or not I would see it? Well, file types of files of type SPSS.SAV. .SAV is a standard SAV data file. It's only looking for files that have that postscript, not looking for Excel files, so you don't see any there. Okay, if I click on this, you can see that I can ask it to look for other kinds of files. In fact, display all files, and you can see all the files that are on my desktop. Let's say I knew it was an Excel file. I could ask it to just show me Excel files. And sure enough, there is my file. Nope, that's not my file. Where is it? Where is my file? Let's see. Here it is, import to SPSS.XLS. That's the file that I want to import. So I'm going to select that one, and I'm going to say open. Okay, but remember, when you're looking for files, you have to make sure that it knows what file type you're looking for, or you won't see it in the window, in your browser window. Okay, so it found data on that file, in that Excel file. And it says that there's basic statistics from A1 through B11. That sounds right? It's not A1 through through B10, because we also have at the top, the first line has BP and has sex as the headings for those files, right? So in fact, this little checkbox says read the variable names from the first row of data. That makes sense for me because that first row is really not data, it's really the variable name. If I unclick that, we'll notice that all of a sudden it's going to bring in that BP and so on and so forth. So I wanted to read that as the variable name. Okay, so I'm looking at that and I can see it looks pretty good. I can see it in this window here. I'm going to say, okay, let's import that file. And SPSS opens a window, a new window. I can get rid of this old one now. Save changes. So it opens this window, and I can see that the first column is blood pressure. The second column is sex or gender, right? So I have pretty much imported this file without making any errors. Okay, and this is the subject number 2, this is subject number 5, this is subject number 8, and so on. Well, now I want SPSS to understand that 1 represents male and 0 represents female. So I have to explain that to it. I have to give SPSS that information. Well, SPSS actually works with multiple windows. This is our data window. If I go down here, you can see there's 2 different views to this data window. Data view and the variable view. You can click back and forth here between the data view and the variable view, right? I can also go up here to view and click back and forth between the where is it? Okay, variable view and the data view. Okay, toggles back and forth. I'm going to go into the variable view. And if you look at the variable view, here's blood pressure. Blood pressure is a number, it's numeric. Okay, it's reserving 11 digits with 0 decimal places. There aren't any decimal places, that's okay for me, right? It has in this line, I can describe what the characteristics of these variables are. Notice we have 2 columns here. That means we're going to have 2 rows, 2 variables described in the variable view. I'm going to keep going across the label. In label, I can now put in something that's more descriptive than just BP, like blood pressure. Maybe it's blood pressure before, for argument's sake. So now, anytime I do a calculation and produce a chart or a table, it's going to, instead of using the word BP, it's going to use blood pressure before, make it more descriptive. Okay, and for instance, for sex, instead of using sex, it might say gender of patient. Okay, so it'll use that instead. Now notice as I go across that column, this row 1, blood pressure is a numerical variable. It's a scalar variable. Scalar meaning numerical. If I click down here, you'll see I have 3 choices: ordinal, nominal, and scalar, as I mentioned before. Scalar is a numerical scale. Okay, now gender or sex is a nominal variable. It's a name, right? A category or a name. So that is going to be a nominal variable. And SPSS has guessed correctly that it's a nominal variable because it only saw 2 values there. So it guessed that blood pressure was numerical or scalar, and that sex or gender was nominal. Okay, now, since that's a nominal variable, right, we might be representing that nominal variable with some shortcut, like for instance, 1 or 0. So in values, in that second row, in values, I can click in here, and instead of leaving it none like we would for a numerical variable, a little box shows up here to the right. I can click on that, and I can tell SPS now that 1 represents tab, I'm going to say represents a male, and 0 represents female. And I'm going to say OK. Now you got to make sure you add and they're really in there, and you say OK. So now if I go back to my data view, SPSS will understand that 1 represents male and 0 represents female. Okay, and I can also go up here to view, and I can toggle those labels on and off in case you want to see it the other way. Okay, so now at this stage, I'm ready to do some statistics. Okay, so I might be interested in, for instance, how many males and females are there, right? I might be interested in describing this nominal statistic. So I want to maybe produce maybe a bar chart or a pie chart. Give me an idea what that looks like. So in order to do that, in order to analyze our variables, our statistics, okay, even our numerical statistics, we always go up here to a drop menu called Analyze. I'm going to click down on Analyze. And I got a whole bunch of selections here: reports, descriptive statistics, tables, compare means. We're going to be using pretty much most of the top half of this thing as we move forward. So I'm not too worried about reports right now. However, descriptive statistics. Okay, so now let's start with our nominal variable, our gender. When I work with a nominal variable, right, I'm usually counting how many left-handers, how many right-handers, right? I'm not interested in averages, right? It's like, in other words, if you have 10 left-handers and 90 right-handers, the average doesn't make any sense, right? If you assign 1 and 2 to left-handers and right-handers, and then average, add up all the ones and twos and average them, it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't really represent anything. But it is interesting to see what the percentage of left-handers are. How many left-handers there are relative to right-handers. So I would go into something called frequencies, because usually with nominal variables, you're counting the number of people that have diabetes versus don't, are left-handed or right-handed, are ethnicity 1 versus ethnicity 2 versus ethnicity 3 versus ethnicity 4. So I'm going to go into frequencies. And in frequencies, I'm going to tell SPSS, a window comes up where I can tell which variable I want to work with. Since I'm working with frequencies, I'm interested for frequencies, I'm interested in nominal variables. So I am going to move frequencies into this box. Okay, so now at this point, I think that's really all I'm going to look at here. I might be interested in doing a bar chart or a pie chart. Okay, and I can have that displayed as frequencies or percentages. I'll leave it on frequencies for now. Statistics, like I said, doesn't make much sense for nominal values, so I wouldn't be worried about that for right now. So I'm just going to do that, and I'm going to say OK. So let's see what SPSS does. SPSS opens a new window, an output window, and that output window is going to continue to scroll up, so that it's almost like a ticker tape, one of those tape calculators. As you do calculations or analyses, they're going to be added onto the bottom. It's going to scroll up. So here we are. So what does it give me? It gives me 3 boxes here. The first box tells me that there were 10 values, 10 subjects, right? All of them, there were no missing subjects. It tells me that the frequency of male patients was 5. Frequency of female patients was 5. They represent 50% of the total values of the total number of people. You notice they use gender of patient instead of sex, right? We didn't do anything with blood pressure. That's not a numerical variable. And look, it created a bar chart for us. And the bar chart is labeled in frequency. There are 5 people in each group, okay, male and female. Let me go back, analyze, descriptive statistics, frequencies. Maybe this time I'll tell it to give me a pie chart and to do it by percentages. Okay, and I'll say OK. It repeats the same thing we did before, and in fact, here we are. It gives me the pie chart and with a legend that describes which ones are males and which ones are females. And I think I should be able to. I won't play with it for right now. I don't want to get stuff confused. Okay, so I can work with produce graphics for nominal variables, descriptive, nominal or categorical variables. How about numerical variables? With numerical variables, we were interested in more mathematical descriptions of them, where the middle is, where the range of them is, so on and so forth. So I'm going to go back up here to analyze descriptive statistics, except this time I'm going to go down to descriptives. Okay, and in this case, we're working with our numerical variable, blood pressure. So what options do I have? Well, it'll let me calculate my mean, my standard deviation, my minimum, my maximum. How about my variance? How about my range? Okay, how's that? I think that's enough for now. And I'm going to click OK. And sure enough, here is the results of our analysis. You can see it there. Their sample size was 10. The range, remember we did it before, the range was 25, minimum 70, maximum 95, 82.5, standard deviation, the variance, gave us all that information in a flash rather than going through all those calculations in Excel, right? This is the advantage of vertical software, is it's specifically designed to do this kind of calculation. You wouldn't be able to use it for much else, but statistics is really quick and accurate at. Okay, it has a lot of different capabilities. So now I'm going to take this a step further. And I'm going to say, I want more information. You can go up here to Analyze, Descriptive Statistics. Go down to the next one called Explore. It's also for numerical variables. Except this time I'm going to put in blood pressure here, and I'm going to go into Statistics. And it doesn't give me much choices. It just says something about confidence interval. We're going to learn about that in the future. And I can now tell it blood pressure. Let's go ahead and click on this and see what it gives us. Oh, how about plots? In plots, give me a histogram. Okay. Now, because it's a numerical variable, we don't do box plots, right? We do histograms instead. I'm going to say OK. I'm going to click OK. Let's see what kind of information I get now. Okay, we have 10 values, right? They're all valid. And let's see what I got. What gave me the mean? It gave me something called a confidence interval. It gave me the median, the variance, the standard deviation, minimum, maximum range, interquartile range. Just so you know, it calculates interquartile range differently than Excel. On the homework, you may notice a small little difference between the value you get for the same data in Excel and in SPSS. I wouldn't worry about that small difference. It really doesn't impact anything, and so on and so forth. And here is our histogram, right, which shows that we had one person in each one of these values, and we had 4 people that had 80, and so on and so forth. You can almost see kind of like this characteristic kind of bell curve start to form that we're going to be tortured with later on. And then we also have our box plot. What was our maximum value? 95. What was our minimum? 70. Where is our median? Our median was 80, right? Notice it's right down there. It's almost the same as our 25th percentile, right? Which gives you an idea how skewed this data is, right? And why did that happen? It happened because we had so many values here, right? And then it's tailed off on the higher end. Okay, so this is not a very normal distribution, but that's okay. We're not worried about that right now. So now that's interesting, right? We could calculate all of these statistics very quickly. You saw how we calculated the variance and the standard deviation. They're measures of spread, right? Let's take this to the next step. I'm going to say Analyze, Descriptive Statistics, and I'm going to go over here to, let's see, I'm going to go to Explore. And you may have noticed that there was a second box here called Factor List. When we factor something in mathematics, we break it up into smaller parts. For instance, if I take 35, I factor it into 5 times 7, right? We're going to do the same thing with our nominal variable. We're going to take our gender And we're going to use that to factor this into two groups. Calculations for the mean, standard deviation, etc., for the males and for the females, so we can compare the two of them. So when I click OK this time, let's see what I get. So now I get two sets of calculations. The average blood pressure for males was 83. Average for females was 83. The average for males was 82. The standard deviation for males was 9.7. Standard deviation for males was 5.7. Less variable than the females were. The means are similar, but the female is less variable. So it'll create histograms for the males and females separately, and it'll create side by side box plots as well. So we can see that the male values were less variable than the female values here. Right? We get a lot of information about the nature of this data. So why are we doing all of this? We're doing this because we have a bunch of numbers, bunch of disorganized numbers that we've collected that represents a sample from a population. And we want to understand as much as we can how this sample enlightens us about the population, where the middle of the values for the population are, where the middle for the male portion is, where the middle for the female portion is, and how they compare. And later on, we're going to actually be doing statistical tests to see if we can say with some level of certainty that they're indeed the same or different. Okay, so we'll be playing around with that as well. Okay, so that's the way in the beginning we're going to use SPSS. Okay, it's almost entirely menu driven. Now, just a word of caution here, because it saves everything in different windows. Here's our output window. Here is our data window. Okay, if I close my output window, right? If I close my output window, or if I save my data window and then close all this, I don't save my output window. If I save my output window and say quit and close the data window without saving it, it doesn't save the data window. They're separate windows. The other thing that you might want to know is that, for instance, let's say I found something really interesting here. Like this histogram looks very, these side-by-side box plots look very important to me. I'm going to open up Microsoft Word. Now, I had an issue with this last upgrade, operating system upgrade on my Mac. So I'm not sure. See, this is the template. I could make that go away, I suppose. On my operating system, on my Mac, I'm not sure if it's fixed or not. I really could use that in a report, that table. So I'm going to click on that and I'm going to say copy, Control C, or I'm going to go up here and say copy. Notice it's highlighted there. And I'm going to my Word document and I'm going to type my report and I'm going to say, hey, this is a good place for my chart. And I'm going to say paste. Did it work? It didn't work. Notice it's there. You can't see it though. You saw that the cursor went way down. I have an issue with with the install on my computer. I might, instead of this, for you guys that use Macs, if you have an issue like this, you probably won't, but if you have an issue like this, you can use the little capture function to copy and paste, I think. But normally 99% of you, myself not among the 99%, would normally just be able to say paste, and it would paste in the chart.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
I'm like trying to do it on my own while you're doing it. When I did the male and female, like when I put in the database, it just says mine, even though I knew the
Let me take a look. Let me take a look.
Like I did these.
Okay, show me your variable page. Go back to your data sheet. Oh, no, here.
That's your this one.
Okay, go to your variable view. Okay, click on values. 0 and 1. Okay, good. Oh, okay, go up here in view. Go back to the other one. You go up to view, and you see this down. No, that's not it. Go back. Yeah, yeah. Oh no, yeah, you have the right one. There's a little toggle down at the bottom too, but that's okay. Don't worry about it. Go up to view. Wait a second. Wait. And I'm looking for guide unit. Click that. There you go.
Thank you.
Okay, that'll toggle back and forth.
Okay.
Okay. Brian, how are you doing there?
I don't even know how to type on this.
What? What do you mean?
You were able to put stuff into the Excel document before. I don't know how to type.
Oh, it's not working? Is it?
It highlights the box, but
Oh, it's a bug. Yeah, it's a bug. Okay. I'm seeing, you should tell me before. I would have stopped. But okay. You'll be able to watch this again. Yeah, you have Excel on your computer at home?
I think so.
Okay, we got to talk.
I
All
know
right.
that's
All right, we got to talk about this. Microsoft, let me, if you guys that are online also, you know, I haven't checked. I haven't checked for a while nobody's typed anything on this chat box except since I asked you if you can hear and see anything. How are you guys doing online? Are you following this? Okay, good. All right, we seem to be doing okay, or at least the people that are willing to admit whether or not they're doing okay say they're doing okay. Good. All right, so if you have any issues installing the software or anything like that, let me know and I'll try and help you out. I think it's pretty descriptive, you know, like the information we have online on Blackboard in terms of like what version that you should use, like the base or the standard, and so on. Just make sure you download the right version for your operating system for Mac, for instance, or for PC. I think pretty much they'll work. I have like a little bit of a bug that's I think it's a problem because my Office software is older. I think I'm running Mac Office 2010 or something like that. I may have to upgrade. But normally you would just be able to cut and paste that image in here, just like I would be able to cut and paste. You know, let me try it with don't need this anymore. Let me try it with a table instead. Window, I'll put, let's say I want to get that table. Let's say copy. See if it works with a table. Microsoft Word. Edit and paste. There you go. It'll let me paste the table. It just didn't like the graphics for some reason. Okay, you can actually paste that, and now you can use that in your reports and your projects and so on and so forth. This has value as you go forward, and you're going to be working with data and having to display data and so on and so forth. You can organize it in SPSS. So you can take this and paste it into a Word document. In fact, the first assignment asks you to do that. It asks you to do something similar in the Excel with some data that's in an Excel file to do some calculations, and then repeat it again. You don't have to import it. I gave you both files. Repeat it again with the same data in SPSS, right? And then also repeat it given that you change from analyzing all of the data together for the mean of all of the data into two groups, like male and female or something like that. So I gave you a little bit more in a week on that. So I'm hoping that you guys will be able to work on that. You know, get Excel, get SPSS onto your machines, and learn how to copy and paste from them into a Word document. So then you can save that and upload it to Blackboard. So that exercise, this first exercise, has two purposes. One purpose is to get you to go ahead and get the software that you need or access to the software that you need, and that you learn the basics of how to use it. So moving forward, I know you've gotten at least to this point, so that I know I can figure that like you guys will be able to get at least to that point. So, but once we get into that assignment, and if you have issues with it and stuff, we can work on that. By the way, I have some good news for you. The way I deal with the homework is I allow multiple updates on homework, multiple attempts at the homework. There's no limit on the number of attempts. And the deal is that I'm less interested in your getting it right the first time than eventually getting it right, right? So, and I'm really interested in you at least tempting it to keep up, try and keep up. Because if I see you're struggling with the homework, I can see the grades that you're getting. If I see you struggling with the homework, I know where I have to like slow down or go back over or something like that. So I need that feedback, especially since I don't even know if you people are real or if you're, if you're robots or something like that out there, or bots, like internet bots or something. I can't see you, right? So I really need that feedback, right? So to that end, any of the homeworks, if you at least attempt it by the due date, right? Just attempt it. In other words, put up an attempt, give it a try. If you get 20% right, 30% right, you can go back the rest of the semester. You can go back and redo that homework until you get 100 on that homework. Your homeworks represent 40% of your grade. So if you just simply keep up and attempt a homework before the due date, not get it right, just attempt it before the due date, so I can see whether or not you've got it or not. Okay, if you at least attempt it, there's no reason for you not to get an A, 100% on the first 40%, and that helps because then that's 40% of your grade. Then if you have if you crash a test or something like that, right? It really kind of like gives you a way to get unburied from that and stuff like that. So it's really important that you keep up with the homeworks. Okay, so that's the deal. All you have to do is do an attempt before the due date, do it on it before the due date, and that gives you the right to go back anytime you want during the semester and redo the homework for whatever higher grade that you get. Okay, so at any rate, that aside, you should be able to at this stage, given what we've done so far, you should be able to do a basic, statistical calculations in Excel, do the same calculations in SPSS, and then copy and paste the results into a Word document. Okay, and I'm just going to go now onto Blackboard and just look at that first assignment. And again, don't worry about it if it looks a little bit weird to you to start off with. By the way, I know my name is misspelled on there. I'm afraid to tell them to correct it because God only knows what I'll lose if they do that. They'll probably just erase me.
Do you provide feedback on the homework, like what we're doing?
Yeah, I will.
Okay.
Yeah, I will. The only problem is that a lot of people start submitting like 7 versions of the homework.
Right.
So I may not do it for every version that you put up, but yeah, especially if you email me that you have a particular problem, something like that. I'll make sure to look at it. Okay, let me see. We're here. Okay. And I got to go over here to assignments. Okay, and let's see if it's available. I think I made it available. Okay. Okay, here's assignment number 1. And here's the data for assignment number 1. Okay, these are Excel files. This is a PDF file, and so on and so forth. These are the data files. Okay, you're not going to use all of them. You're only going to use a couple of them. So let's start assignment number 1. It comes up, with a few warnings and stuff like that. Begin. Okay, and here's some of the problems. Which of the following are categorical variables? There's 2 correct answers here. See, anytime you see a box on these multiple choice, it means there's multiple answers, right? If you see a square box, right? And if you can check into more than one of them, I'm not suggesting the right answers. And question 2 is just basically the idea of identifying numerical variables and categorical variables and so on and so forth. Those are basically the first bunch of questions and so on. Okay. Now this one on it asks you to interpret a histogram. I may change that question. This always causes a little bit of confusion. I may change that question. But basically what that's asking you to do is I don't want to. I'll get back to that rather than diverge out of this. Now question number 6, using the data provided in student test scores, use Excel to calculate the mean, median, so on and so forth. Well, what is that? What is student test scores? What is that file? I'll open that up. You'll see it's a file like we just had, and you just calculate the mean, median, standard deviation the way we did before. Okay, and then copy that and upload the completed Excel file. So you can save it in Excel file as an Excel file and upload it. You don't have to copy it into a Word file. It doesn't ask you to do that. You save it by just clicking on Browse My Computer. It'll come up with a window where you can choose the file and upload it. Okay. Question 7, repeat that same problem using the SPSS version of the file. In other words, calculate the mean, standard deviation, and so on. And the last question is using this file, NC birth, right? It's a bunch of, it's 800 different births, a sample of 800 births during a certain year in North Carolina. And it has the gender of the baby, the amount of weight gained by the mother, the number of weeks of gestation, the birth weight of the baby, so on and so forth. It asks you to compare the mean, median, standard deviation, and standard deviation of the weights of the infants in grams born to women who are married versus women who are not married. What is that? That's asking you to use explore, analyze descriptive statistics, explore, and then move into the analyze file the weights of the babies in grams, numerical variable, and lose into the factor box the marital status of the mother, right? And then ask it to do those various statistics and do side-by-side box. Actually, it automatically does side-by-side box plots. But it asks you to do that and then copy and paste the results into a Word document and upload the Word document to right here. Again, you browse your computer, go to where you put that Word document and upload it. Okay, so basically everything we did here should prepare you for that. Okay, so rather than going through it more, I want you guys to kind of like dive in and get on the bicycle and play with it yourself so that you get an idea of how these programs work. If you're struggling with it, don't worry about it. Just get that attempt in there before, I think, what did I call the due date on this? June 10th. What is today? Today's the 4th. So yeah, that's Sunday midnight. That's Sunday end of day, right? So you have until then to put in your first attempt. So as long as you got a first attempt in, you can, even if you can't do number 8, right? Just do the first 7 or the first 6 and do your best on them. It should give you feedback on right and wrong answers. So you can look at it, you can say to yourself, what did I do wrong here? Maybe I need to adjust this. As moving forward, I might give you less feedback on your homework, immediate feedback on your homework. In other words, I may just tell you which ones you got right and wrong. So that'll force you to go back and do it yourself again until you get it right. So some of this particular one waits for me to grade it because you're uploading files and I have to look at the file, right? So it's not going to grade automatically. Most of the ones moving forward, you'll at least get whether you want feedback on what you got right and wrong immediately as soon as you submit it. So you could even do it again right immediately. The only thing that's downside of this is that let's say there's 10 questions, you got 9 right? You got 1 wrong and you want to redo it. It will not let you go back and modify just that one question. You have to start from scratch. So just keep that in mind. Just save it as a PDF file, your answers as a PDF file, or write them down or something like that, so you don't have to go through the whole thing again. Okay, you guys online are comfortable with that as well? Okay, good. All right, good. So, my voice is starting to go, and I think this is a good spot for us to call it a night. Okay, so we have this material. Remember on Blackboard, I'm gonna put this recording back up. On Blackboard, there's another version of this that I've done another semester. So if you didn't get it in this version, you might want to play that instead. Okay? We might want to play that video instead and see if it's any clearer to you there.